Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, has been provided by the annual notice, which has been posted on the bulletin boards, filed with the Borough Clerk, and has been sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Independent, the Star Ledger, and the Two River Times.
Thank you. May we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Sheridan?
Here.
Councilmember Cooper?
Here.
Councilmember Good?
Here.
Councilmember Pacheco?
Here.
Councilmember Fotopoulos?
Here.
Councilmember McDermott?
Here.
Mayor Kennedy?
Here. As a courtesy to those around you, if you could please silence your cell phone, if you can all rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We may stand for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We have a proclamation to read this evening regarding National Stuttering Awareness Day. Whereas stuttering is a communication disorder in which the flow of speech is broken by repetitions or abnormal stoppages of sounds and syllables. And whereas stuttering is a genetically influenced condition, most of the time, if there is one person in a family who stutters, there will be another person in the family who also stutters. And whereas more than 70 million people worldwide stutter, including over 3 million in the United States. And whereas stuttering is more common among males than females. In adults, male to female ratio is 4 to 1. In children, it is closer to 2 to 1. And whereas approximately 5% of children go through a period of stuttering that lasts 6 months or more. 3/4 of those will recover by late childhood, leaving about 1% with long-term problems. Whereas people who stutter can overcome the burden of stuttering and live full lives regardless of whether or how much they stutter. And whereas best prevention tool is early intervention. Now therefore be it proclaimed that October 22nd be recognized as the National Stuttering Awareness Day, and if we can all call observance to the attention of our citizens who stutter. Thank you. We'll start with committee reports with Councilman Sheridan.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a very decent redevelopment meeting recently. Historical Society is having its tea and fashion show this Saturday, October 19th from 1 to 4. There's tickets still available. October 7th, they had a special presentation right here in Borough Hall for the hidden history of Monmouth County, and that was very well attended. With the senior bus, it's in operation every Tuesdays and Thursdays doing its loops, and attendance is going up. We also had the bus in operation for the music festival this past Saturday. And it's also going to other special events, and soon we're going to have it numbered, lettered, logoed, and we're looking to have it running on Sundays. That's the plan. Hurricane prep meeting recently held. We want to have a drill on Saturday, November 9th. And that drill, it's to be determined, but the 3 items that I would like to do is simulate moving the Little Red Boathouse, having DPW cut apart a couple trees with chainsaws, and test the fire first aid alarms from the police station with our backup system and the chief's vehicles. These drills still have to get vetted out, but that's one of the things that we talked about at the hurricane prep meeting. Always good ideas from that. And lastly, I want to be the first to thank the mayor, Nancy Smalling, Paul McKeefrey, and all the volunteers for an amazing music festival. Okay. There's a lot of people involved in it, but those are the 3 I saw. And it's just, they had the weather. I think the weather being perfect just complemented just all the bands and just everything just ran like clockwork. It was just a fantastic event. Great job for Keyport. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Cooper?
Okay, from the Recreation Committee. The Oktoberfest 5K had 340 finished, 390 had registered, and we made $4,000. Matt Rat's looking for insurance from the borough, and the ideas for 2019 is Atlantic City trip, candy bingo, indoor movie night, and we're working on Valentine's Day dance for next year for February 14th. As far as the, excuse me, as far as the senior complex goes, it's a pretty lengthy one, so I'll just give you the highlights. We had inmates from the Monmouth County Sheriff's Department were scheduled to work at the senior citizens for a week, but they showed up for 3 days. During this time, they did a great job of cleaning the back and front yards, power washed and prepped the back as well as the front of the building. Looks a lot better. The carpet was installed with much help from our DPW. Leah mentioned a trip to Crystal Point Yacht Club. This trip had to be canceled. The second cancellation, and we'll be back in two or 3 months. October 3rd, planning a trip to Historical Museum here in Keyport. I think that Joe mentioned that. Our volunteer program, Bridges, returned along with Grand Friends program. That's all my report.
Councilman Good?
Thank you,
Just
Mayor.
making sure you were paying attention.
Let's see, with regard to the fire department, they had 47 calls for the month, totaling almost 344 hours, bringing grand total to 447 calls for the year and about 7,150 man hours. Also, with regard to the planning board, actually, we're just awaiting more development applications. That's what I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Pacheco?
Excuse me. So the police department reports 945 calls for service this month. There are 70 case files. There was 1 Narcan deployed and 4 DWIs. And since one of them was the guy that hit me, I just want to again say thank you to the police department, the fire department the first day, and everybody who helped, all the neighbors. This is why we live here. So the schools have been in session for a month. It's been going pretty smoothly. The chief had rapid deployment force training on 10th and Marlboro. Chief Meehan from Hazlet and our chief are commanders of the 60 officer team that respond to various serious calls throughout the whole county, all times of day or night. He also attended a hurricane prep meeting with Councilman Sheridan. 5K race was a great success. Keyport hosted the Bayshore Active Shooter Training at St. Joe's on September 26th. Sergeant Dixon was a trainer who did a great job, and there's special thanks to Captain Torres and Detective Sergeant Vendina, who, along with the chief, role-played as bad guys and got a little beat up during the training. And lastly, we want to give special thanks to Patrolman I can never say her name right, Shoe Chuck, who ran the Tunnels to Towers run for 9/11, and they ran in full uniform. So that is the police report. Park Commission's meeting on October 21st, and Municipal Alliance's meeting on the 22nd, so I'll report next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Patapoulos?
Thank you, Mayor. The Registrar Treasurer's report was submitted by Donna Purcell, our Registrar, is in the packet on the page, in the book on the table. We had a recycling meeting last Tuesday, October 8th. We will be meeting again next month to finalize the recycling brochure. A new service that we'll be providing to the public in the incoming year is a website that will be linked to, but independent of the borough website, that will serve as an up-to-date information channel for our citizens who have access to the web. We're not going to forego the brochure or public service announcements when needed, but the committee believes that this will serve as an efficient means to communicate recycling information to our public. This has been the recycling committee's on the wish list for some time, and given the low cost of maintaining the website at the moment and the skill set of the volunteers willing to take the task of keeping it up to date, the opportunity to deploy this has never been better. I'll be asking for council's consent to move forward at a cost not to exceed $200 through the first quarter of next year for this site, and after that, a budget not to exceed $500 per year should suffice in keeping it up to date. With that, I need to check with Tom Fallon to see if there's any money left over from the previous Recycling Stimulus Initiative grant to perhaps contribute to this and more repairs at the Florence Avenue recycling facility. The roof is coming along great, and the soffit was left as of the last meeting. I don't know if it's been completed since then, maybe someone here knows, but I'm going to set up a meeting with Bob Kretschmann this week to inspect the cardboard dumpster and compactor. We may need to replace that, but we'll take a look at it. The Environmental Commission, as reported last month, the Environmental Commission would like council's endorsement of a letter to be sent by the commission to the county regarding the dangers of speed, lack of crosswalks, paving, and parking on First Street. I'm waiting for the leadership to send a letter to this regard, but certainly it's been talked at the last 3 meetings, and it's a priority. And you know, I've been discussing with them that it's part of projects that we have in the works, but they still want to be heard and still want to send their letter of concern to the county. I attended the ANJAC conference. Our Environmental Commission is a member of ANJAC, which is the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions, which means that I was able to attend this conference for no charge. It was enlightening, and I can report back that in many cases, we're far ahead of the curve in regards to environmental initiatives, and our approach of a voluntary plastic ban was affirmed by other members that discussed the strategy, that I discussed the strategy with, and indeed it's not unlike other municipalities' approaches. They may be implementing a ban, but the initial phase of the ban has always been voluntary to try and help businesses get used to it. I highlighted our Beach Grass Living Shoreline initiative at the conference, which has become known to other towns on the Bayshore and the Seashore. We should submit the results of this initiative next year to the ANJAC conference and possibly for awards recognition. The awards that were received this year were certainly in a class that our project is in, and I'm thinking that we'll probably receive an award for that. We won't be at the meeting until later this month. Clean Ocean Action Beach Sweeps is October 26th, next Saturday. It's not on the borough website. Steve, can we put that on the borough website?
What's that now?
Clean Ocean Action Beach
Sure.
Sweeps?
It's up there, it's under events.
It's under events. Okay. Is it on the calendar, Mayor? I didn't look at the calendar, admittedly.
I believe
It
so.
is? All right, so there's also a registration, a form that I can provide as well. And that's my report. Thanks as always for allowing me to serve you all.
Thank you. Councilwoman McDermott?
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to talk about the KBC Music Fest. Utmost thank you to everyone that was both in the KBC board members, event committee members, all volunteers who helped out there regarding setting up tables. We're starting from 7 a.m. when I was there, and with my husband and many others, till the evening, 10 o'clock at night. It was an amazing event, and I do believe that Keyport was showcased, and again, King University offering that free shuttle from the train station over into town was a huge benefit, and alleviated some of the parking situations and limitations we may have. I also want to appreciate and thank everyone, DPW and the police department, for blocking off where we knew that there were going to be areas of flooding, and to prevent any disruptions to individuals who may have parked there unknowingly. Also, I want to also thank the Keyport community as a whole, because I do know that having these big events does just disrupt sometimes some local transportation along the town, but I do think it's something that showcases our town and the town. So we look forward to continuing these initiatives as we move forward under the KBBC programs. So the other thing I do want to talk about, we have farmers market that's still happening every Thursday. It's going to happen through October until it gets seasonally cold and the vendors don't have any more vegetables to sell. But it's scheduled to go through October. The library is going to have their 5th annual Scarecrow contest. It starts from 11 till 3. Please go ahead and vote for the best Scarecrow. They have 3 categories: creative, scary, and
History.
History, yes, thank you. And again, from 11 to 3, they're going to have a big event. They're also going to have a beer garden, and they're going to have some fun things. So please go there. Chimney work on the library should be done by the end of October, from my understanding. There's some 2 dates that they have tentatively mapped out for the 1-day service that's going to take to get that done. The Keyport English as a Second Language actually kicked off in October, so we have 2 more events on the 16th and the 30th. And they start it's from 7 to 9. Again, this is a free service that we offer the community. Also, don't forget about Christmas tree line. That's going to happen at the end of November. That's just something upcoming. As well as the Historic Society, the Tea and Fashion Show fundraiser. There are tickets available from 1 to 4 at the Yacht Club. So again, if you have an opportunity to attend that, please do so. I do have some things to talk about. These reports have been submitted, and the building department has submitted their monthly report. Code enforcement, we've had 37 tickets issued. Transfer titles for COs, 12. Smoke detector inspections, 37, which is always important. Zoning, we've had 14. So these are just some of the key numbers of increases. Construction debris deposits, 11. And for the Keyport Clean Communities, some highlights. The National Honor Society did volunteer work, and the Cub Scouts number 364 collected 1 bag of litter on October 5th. Thank you for doing that to both organizations. And we do have to say no tires were found along the path, which is good. No tires is always great. Installed updated posters in the big bellies. Again, some of those are related to the music fest, so thank you for helping to promote that and fix our signs out there. 1026 is the beach which was already spoken about, by being sponsored by the Keyport.
Clean Ocean Action.
Yeah, I said it previously mentioned. It's being, and also the Clean Communities does support that as well. 1029, the coordinator will actually be presenting at the new NJCC seminar, how to start a Clean Communities program in your town. This is the 2nd event that he's actually going to speak. So that's great marketing, and it's great, just great knowledge being transferred about what he's done for Keyport, or in support with the community. The coordinator will also attend mandatory training seminar on 10:30 and 10:31. So Tom Galvin will not be around.
What? He's not on Halloween?
Nope.
You
really believe that's where he's going? I don't know.
Is the kids trick or treating, or is he going to be at a conference?
But again, I really do want to thank the community and at large for the Music Fest. I think that was an amazing event, and I hope that everyone enjoyed it out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
Good evening, Mayor and council members, citizens here in the chamber. I'll briefly report on some of our activities since the last meeting. Since our last meeting, I met with Redevelopment Council. I met with the contracted redeveloper of 75 Manchester. Also met briefly with the Recreation Committee. I participated in the a meeting regarding logistics for the music festival. I attended the KBBC meeting, met with the owners of Port 149 project to discuss their project, and we interviewed court personnel with the Personnel Select Committee. With regard to our major capital projects, Perry Street Water Treatment Plant is on target to be started up next month, with the project being completed in December. We'll do a test run in November. We have also renewed our application for FEMA funding for repairs to the bulkhead at Fireman Park and to raise that area up. Our water allocation permit has been approved, the renewal. 2018 road improvement project phase 1 is complete. 2019 roadway improvement project phase 2 is underway. The contractor Underground Utilities Corporation has dug some test pits on East Front Street, and that's in anticipation of making some modifications and upgrades to the storm sewer in that area. And then the paving will commence following the sewer improvements. 2019 roadway improvement project phase 3, Esposito Construction has commenced cement work on Kearney Street, including sidewalks, curbs, and storm sewer inlets, and the paving of Center Street was also accomplished. Beach Park and Beer Street outfalls, the contractor, CRS Contractors, has mobilized over at Beach Park. We've been working with them to try and minimize their use of the existing parking lot, but the job is underway, and they will be driving piles and conducting some heavy construction in that area in the near future. And then they'll move on to the Beer Street section of the job. Main Street Park improvements are continuing. They've got the playground equipment and the ball field leveled off, and the exercise stations are also being installed, and then they'll follow up with the skate park structure. We're waiting on grant information with regard to improvements at Kearney Street Park. As reported earlier, the library chimney will be done. The target date is October 22nd and should take just about a day to do. A flood damage prevention ordinance, I asked Trevor for an update today, and he promised that he would have a finalized version for review prior to the next council meeting, and hopefully we can have it finalized for introduction at that meeting. With regard to our TAP, Transportation Alternatives Program grant, pedestrian safety grant, I have been working with the state to finalize our contract with the contractor, and then we will have, we'll open the project with a public meeting to talk about the goals that we're trying to accomplish. I also attended a meeting at the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority regarding our Complete Streets consultant. The authority had taken proposals from 9 firms, and we did a matrix scoring of each one of those proposals. All of them were very good, and anyone would have done a great job, but only 2 firms were listed as finalists, and we conducted interviews with them last Friday, and North Jersey is now negotiating a cost proposal with them, and I expect that a contract will be awarded next month. I think that this is a very exciting process. We're going to have the products from this project will include a Keyport Complete Streets policy, an analysis of our roadways, and a Complete Streets ordinance, as well as a demonstration project somewhere in town to communicate what Complete Streets is all about. We're also moving forward with our neighborhood preservation program. Presently, we're in the process of recruiting an NPP coordinator, and then we also need to appoint the NPP steering committee. We have a number of grants outstanding, but we have received word that we've received CDBG funding for sidewalk improvements on Broad Street from Maple Place to Route 36. And I'm working with our engineer to see if we can get the county to repave Broad Street, since the records that I've been able to unearth indicate that it hasn't been resurfaced in over 20 years. And that includes, unfortunately, Maple Place and Broadway as well. So we're going to try and get some love from the county. We also received word that the First Aid Squad was eligible for nonprofit funding for ADA improvements that they need to do at that facility. With regard to redevelopment projects, I did get an email from Clay Perlman regarding Mariners Village, and he said that he is working on finishing his permits. I reminded him that he had a short time frame within which to commence his project and complete it, and he said that he will make the deadlines. Also met with a prospective purchaser of the Aero Marine property. With regard to scattered sites, we're under the guise of that. We've been focusing on 75 Manchester, and we did have a community meeting where there were a lot of interesting ideas floated with regard to what the project, what the community should be looking for at that location, and we relayed that information to the contract purchaser, and they've asked for an opportunity to present their proposal to the community, so we're considering scheduling a meeting for that purpose so that he gets to make his case, and then we'll decide what's going to happen there. Longview Boat Works, you've probably seen the new Mount Keyport that has arisen over on Front Street, and that is only temporary. That soil is put there to surcharge the soil and compact it. It will be, some of it will be spread out, but the balance of it will be removed. It needs to sit on the site for approximately 6 months. We did have a meeting with the owner of 149 West Front Street to discuss his project, and we have a couple of ideas that we need to discuss. Our new phone system should be installed on November 11th, on Veterans Day. When we're not here, they're going to do the switchover. I've been working with the mayor with regard to conditions on Route 35. As most citizens have become aware from through Keyport, there was some improvements done going all the way up to Sayreville on Route 35. I hesitate to use the word improvements because they don't seem to have improved anything, and we have a washboard effect when you drive on the road. There's also a kind of like a gravelly noise as opposed to a smooth road surface. Our engineer met with the state, and they profess to be perfectly satisfied with the job. So the mayor has asked that we contact the commissioner of DOT. We're in the middle of doing that, and hopefully we can get some attention. The surface of the roadway is scuffed all over the place. It's embossed with tire tracks and imprinted in many areas. There's a washboard surface. There's also a tremendous amount of gravel just left on the roadway in various areas. And this method that they use to basically put a surface on top of the surface, it's called a slurry seal, and I've done a little research on it. It's traditionally used in low volume areas to preserve a roadway for a couple more years. Obviously, we all know that Route 35 is not a low volume road, and it would also appear from the condition of the road that vehicles were allowed to drive over the surface before it had completely set. So we're working on that, and hopefully we can get a positive reaction from the state, and they'll have the contractor come in and repair it, because there's an argument to be made that the slurry seal wasn't a great way to fix this road, and this is a really bad slurry seal, so there's two issues on top of it. So that's what we've been up to, and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anyone? A few updates. I've performed a couple weddings over the last few weeks. There's lots of love in the air, which is exciting. Attended the Keyport Historical Society presentation last week, which was very well attended, so kudos to the Historical Society for bringing awareness of not just Keyport, but all of Monmouth County. The presentation was well put together. We celebrated National Walk to School Day, thanks to the police department and the PTO for their initiatives with honoring that every year. Attended homecoming. Congratulations to the homecoming king and queen. Councilman Sheridan's son was awarded homecoming king. Congratulations. I attended a meeting last week with Mr. Gallo and one of the scout leaders about potential future Eagle Scout projects within the municipality. A huge thank you to JCP&L, Steve Gallo, and Chief Hafner. If you guys exit the building this evening, you will notice that all of the streetlights on West Front Street are now operational. Which is, I can't even tell you how many requests, meetings, nudges, phone calls meetings, nudges. It took, but they're all lit now, so thank you for the continuous efforts on that, Steve. Also, thank you to KBBC, because you'll notice that the black municipal lanterns that align most of the business districts in Keyport are now decorated with the white holiday lights. They were up in time for the music festival, but they will be remaining all winter. So they'll be taken down after the St. Patrick's parade. So I'll have them through the winter to help keep the bright and cheery feel in the winter gloomy months. So thank you to KBBC for paying for those. The Bayshore 2020 initiative had a little bit of a hiccup, but we believe the hiccups have now been cleared, and we will be back on track with trying to finalize some initiatives to get to print for the winter trade shows with Monmouth County Tourism. Upcoming events, most have already been discussed, are Scarecrow Contest, the Keyport Historical Tea Society, the Beach Sweep. The Halloween Parade will be the same day as Beach Sweep. That begins at 11 o'clock in Fireman's Lot. And then immediately following that, once the children arrive at the school and receive awards for Halloween costumes, there will be Community Day in the gymnasium at the school. All businesses or committees or commissions or clubs are encouraged to sign up to have a table at Community Day. It'll be a table or trunk type of table or treat, I guess, instead of trunk or treat. It'll be there. You can decorate your table in a Halloween fashion and give out candy or knickknacks to the kids. Following that will be a trunk or treat at Stop and Shop location. So this is going to be Stop and Shop's area first big event, so hopefully we can go out and support that. And that will be from 3 to 7?
3 to 7.
Thanks. And if I could just remind everyone that November 5th is Election Day, so please remember to vote. And those are my updates. So next up, we will move on to the consent agenda.
Resolution 27319 is the payment of bills. Resolution 27419 authorizes the execution of a Special Citizens Area Transportation SCAT 2020 agreement. Resolution 27519 authorizes a reduction of the sewer portion of a water sewer bill due to a leak at 94 3rd Street. Resolution 27619 authorizes the purchase of a 2019 Dodge Ram truck under state contract T2099 for the Borough of Keyport Fire Bureau. Resolution 27719 is declaring certain property of the borough surplus and providing for its disposition. Resolution 27819 authorizes the hiring of Special Law Enforcement Officer 1 candidate James C. Camilleri and a police clerk Patrick M. Dunn. Resolution 27919 approves the boundaries of the Keyport Neighborhood Preservation Program district boundaries. And Resolution 28019 authorizes the reduction of the performance bond for Keyport 44 Realty LLC for the property located at Block 1.01, lots 43, 44, and 45 on the tax map of the borough.
Before we move further, I know Councilman Patopoulos has requested 27419 to be pulled for separate discussion. Do you want to discuss it now or pull it completely and have a separate vote on it after?
Mayor, with your permission, we can discuss it now, if that's okay.
I'm fine with that. The rest of the day is okay.
It's the first time that I'm seeing something like this. We vote on it annually, do we not?
We
Correct.
do.
Yeah. And it looks like a cookie cutter, and the question I have is that, well, what I'm concerned about is that there is no specificity to this, and I'm hoping that since we have a bus ourselves now, we might be able to offset SCAT with our own bus. Is that the intent?
Yes.
That's correct, yes.
Originally, we were also supposed to just be supplementing it. Once they heard just some background, they were not providing services and bringing our seniors
Right.
to the supermarket
Oh, yeah.
and so forth. Once they found out that we got the grant, all of a sudden they were back on track. Nowhere near a straight track and nowhere near adequate services by any stretch of the imagination. But I would like to point out as Councilman Sheridan highlighted before, while we would love to grow our senior transportation to a full-time project, at this point in time, we are at a minimum schedule. So
Yep.
I just want to point that out, that it's already been up and running for 5 months, and we haven't even consistently operated a 2-day schedule yet, just for multiple of reasons.
That's fine. So, and that leads me to the next question. Appendix A of the contract specifies days of service per week, and it has full days with an underline and half days with an underline, and there's an X through full days. That doesn't mean 10, I know that, but shouldn't they be putting a number of days there? Or is it just, what is the way they do it? Do senior citizens call them and then they come, and that's considered a full day?
They offer service 5 days a week, full-time, okay? If we only had half days, they would only come pick up people during half days on those days. As you can see, the rate for a full day of service is $78. They do provide services to doctor's appointments, and we have to schedule in advance. It's kind of onerous and burdensome. They also bring people to and from events that the senior center has, and they bring people to lunch. As was mentioned previously, we definitely had some problems with the service. That's what led us to seek out our own service. Earlier, there was some difficulty with the manner in which the program was being run, in our opinion. And we met with the director at the time. I believe it was, I don't remember the freeholder who was in charge. Freeholder Curley was under his wheelhouse. Since then, Freeholder Kiley has taken over, and I believe Mayor Kennedy's expressed your concerns about the program to her. So we're working on improving it, but we're also working on supplementing it. If we can get to the point where it's not necessary, then we won't have to renew the contract. But presently, it still is used, and we need
And
to-
primarily, also, the other challenge for the record is that what was happening with SCAT is they were picking up our residents and bringing them out of our municipality to the other businesses. So they
To
were
some
taking
degree,
them
yeah.
shopping to other stores as opposed to our own stores within our town. And they were bringing them down to Homedale and Hazlitt. And not that I have any issues with Homedale and Hazlitt, but our seniors would like to get around our own town. So
Yeah.
that's where the Keyport Skipper benefits that, we're also talking discussions with KBBC to maybe implement a senior discount day downtown, so they can come out for lunch, and, if they have a way to get down here, it would be a lot easier for them.
Do we pay the $78 a day whether or not it's used?
Yes. There is, I just asked Madeline this afternoon when I saw your email to provide me with some ridership statistics, and it does appear that there is ridership Monday through Friday every day.
Okay.
I have a question.
Victoria, sorry,
Yeah.
Councilwoman
I mean, this
Victoria.
might be a stupid question now that you've said that people are riding it every day, but is it worth having a discussion about half days because it's supplementing, or are we not at that point of service yet with
Well, I mean, the focus is to try and provide the maximum service that we can to our citizens, particularly our senior citizens. And at this point, I don't want to restrict them saying you have to use this service only during the morning or the afternoon.
Thank you.
One more thing to add to all of that. One of the reasons we got involved with our own senior transportation is because SCAT was not providing the service that they were supposed to. We mentioned that.
Absolutely.
But the bottom line is you have to go 2-3 days in advance, and Madeline gives us a copy of all the problems that the clients were complaining about.
Sure.
And when you talk to them, you weren't getting a good answer. When the council, the mayor and the council and everybody decided that we would get our own bus schedule, and we implemented it, and we've been working on it for quite a while. All of a sudden, they want to provide more services. Now, on the grant that's provided by the county for the SCAT, It's, they were cutting back all sorts of things. And as the mayor had mentioned, alluded to before, they were going everywhere except where people would want it. Now that we have the bus up and running, as people get more familiar with it and as all the places start announcing the pickup delivery times, etc., we are getting more interested. And as you saw, we have some of the people are coming in, and we're seeing them all the time saying about how they appreciate the service, but they don't know about it. We're going to be publicizing that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, we are definitely in a transition phase. I do think SCAT is also undergoing a transition with Freehold Kylie taking the reins of that service. One of the things that's important to point out too is that we can supplement, and as we already have, we provided service on a Sunday to bring people down to the music festival. The mayor and I ran into a couple of festival goers from Bethany Manor, and they were delighted. They just loved the whole experience, and they were very grateful. I think it's important that we maintain a high level of service for our senior citizens who have done so much for us in years past as a community, that we should, do this for them. We will be monitoring SCAT and the level of service that we can provide to make sure that we're taking care of their needs.
I just have one question. So SCAT does go outside of Keyport and it will pick up outside of Keyport, correct?
They do.
They service
service
all
all
Monmouth
Monmouth
County, but they have territorial areas.
Yeah, they have
so-
individual buses that do certain routes, and part of it is sometimes where the citizen wants to go, but it also is, oh, we're going to the supermarket, we're going to this supermarket.
So my question to this is, alleviating SCAT wouldn't, so we may have other non-Keyport residents going to the senior center or enjoying certain shopping in town that may not participate or engage in our Keyport Skipper program because they're not Keyport residents. So you may have to be,
Yes, to a certain degree. I mean, we're not trying to be exclusive.
Right.
There are members of the Keyport Senior Citizen Center who don't live in Keyport. They pay a fee to be a member,
Right.
but we could transport them, as far as our routes go. And then, we're not going to say you can't get on this bus.
It's also important to note that the grant for this bus is for senior citizens as well as disabled.
Right, yeah.
Good point.
And so is SCAT, they said, yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's not, that says it's for senior, so.
That's it, thank you.
Okay, so I didn't want to not pass this, I wanted more specificity. I don't have a total in front of me, $78 per day times how many days? Is it a contract that we pay in full at the end, quarterly?
There's an invoice that's issued, and there's never any urgency about paying it. I mean, it's not like they're calling up saying, how come you haven't paid this yet? But it's a quarterly invoice, and it's a relatively reasonable cost.
Sure, I agree with that. Does it also include Access Link?
No, that's been run through New Jersey Transit.
That's run through New Jersey Transit, okay.
Yeah.
Also, SCAT gets a grant from the
They also service entities that pay them, okay, which has been an issue in the past because they're obviously interested in making the money as opposed to providing the service. We had gotten frequent cancellations in the past at the last minute, and we've since seen that go down since we got our own bus.
Well, Councilman Sheridan at several meetings ago had initiated the thing with Madeline Costello to submit the complaints that they were having with SCAT to them, and we reviewed them at the meetings. And what we try to do is address the immediate problem they have, and we provide and incorporate that in our thinking with what we're doing in our long-range planning.
Right, we hear the problems that SCAT's having, and we don't want to repeat those.
Right.
Sure.
It's also important to know, Councilman Patopoulos, that some of the other highlights that we received was 2 years ago, we had a resident in one of our senior high-rises that needed ongoing cancer treatment, and the location of their treatment was 16 miles, and SCAT refused to take in the extra 2 miles because they said their radius is a 14-mile max.
You see, I mean, this is,
So,
I'm cool with leaving it on the consent agenda for now, but, you know, and I so appreciate the discerning attention that the mayor, Councilman Sheridan, and Councilman Cooper especially have given to this, and whoever else has helped with that, Sophia Lambertson maybe when she was here as well. But I'm, you know, this is a pure customer service issue that's becoming a pandemic with the county, you know, and I think that we need to hold their feet to the fire a little bit and try and get some better results. Understanding too that this probably isn't just a Keyport issue, right, man?
right.
Right, so.
And I honestly do believe that it has improved.
Okay.
I think they've had change in leadership also, obviously. No disrespect to people with Curly, but there's definitely been some change of guard there also.
Okay.
And I think they realize that people will make it happen with or without them, and they don't want to really look as if they don't, you know, support their total citizenship. So they have stepped it up a little bit, but there is definitely still areas that need to be addressed that even our senior bus doesn't address, and that's transportation to further out medical appointments, especially when those are the only places that they can get the cancer treatments. So I'm actually in the process of setting up a collaborative meeting with someone from the American Cancer Society, and she's going to hopefully highlight some things for Bayshore mayors about access for when someone needs to get to.
That's wonderful. Thank
So
you.
I will keep you apprised on that once I
Please
have
do.
more information.
Thanks, everybody. You can keep, I'm on board.
Okay. Can I have a motion to open to the public for items on the consent agenda only, please?
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, before I just have one question, just a clarification.
Mhm.
On 275-19, it's the water sewer bill.
Mhm.
For some reason, I'm seeing different house numbers here. It says owner of 94 3rd Street, and then it says on the receipt for the plumbing has 120 3rd Street, and then on the access, this printout page from, I'm not really sure where it is.
4th Street.
Location is 54 3rd Street, and so I don't have any issue with it, I just want to know where this place is.
So can I make a suggestion that we pull this to the next meeting and get clarification from Ms. Stencil?
I certainly support that. I'll make that motion.
Second.
So for the matter of record for the public, we will be pulling 275-19 and tabling that to the next meeting and for point of reference clarification.
Good job, Mr. Good.
And for everybody who doesn't think we read this stuff.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second already, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on the consent agenda? Yes?
Good evening, Mayor. Len Rubenstein, 134 Gettysburg Lane in Homedale. Just wanted to take this opportunity. First thing, one of the items that Mr. Gallo had pointed out about 75 Manchester, I just wanted to thank you and your council with reference to allowing us to present a plan that we really put a lot of effort into. I know that we didn't have that opportunity at the first public hearing, and I think that it'll go a long way as to, at the very least, make the public understand what it is, the objective is on our end of it as well. And I think it'll soften the blow, call it at this point, based on the outcome that we heard. Everything into account that was discussed that meeting. We made many adjustments since that meeting to our plan. We realized that the public didn't get a chance to see it. But I think that based on the product that we're looking to at the very least present to them, I think it'll be a big help. And while I have your attention, I just want to give you a few status reports on some of the projects I'm working on in town. Thankfully, Chamber of Water, we have some families moving in starting this week if we get our COs tomorrow. Nappy has started construction, 2 lots on Nappy and Broadway, and we plan on demolishing the firehouse on Waverly as early as next week, and starting those foundations shortly after. So we've got a lot of stuff going on, trying to get it done before the winter starts. So just giving you a quick heads up. Thank you again for all of your time.
Thank you for your patience with JCP&L. I know the Jingle Roar project was delayed. We did what we could from the boroughs
You were
and
more than instrumental, and I appreciate it.
so they worked a lot quicker, kind of, on the streetlights once we got the ball rolling with them.
Yes, they did.
We're still working with communication with them.
And I can rest assured that, you can rest assured that I put my application in for Waverly about a month ago for that as well. We didn't even demo the whole building yet, so we're trying to get ahead of that bus. All right, thank you again, everyone.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public wish to speak on the consent agenda? Mr. Rowling?
Good evening, everybody. George Wall, 54 2nd Street.
Good evening.
Can I ask the committees on their report now also? Mr. Good, can you give an update on the hook and ladder?
It exists, what do you mean?
It's not in the building for 3 weeks now?
Hook and ladder?
Yeah.
Actually, this first I've heard, I'll check with the fire chief. Actually, Mr. Fox, you're in.
It's out for yearly service. It was, they're gonna be back today or tomorrow, George.
Okay. So it's been 3 weeks though, right?
Yeah, just getting its ladder service, oil change, chassis service.
Okay. Thank you.
How's that for responsiveness, George?
Anyone else in the public wish to, Mr. Lee?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport. Resolution 279-19, which defines the new boundaries for the NPB. I looked at the resolution and I looked at the book here, and there's no definition of the boundaries associated with the resolution. Do members of the council have a map? Have that map? Can I see that map?
It is not in the packet, but I have seen it.
I don't know why it's not in the packet. It was submitted with the request for the resolution.
That may be my mistake that it's not attached.
Definitely exists, I've seen it as well.
Fine.
It definitely exists, I've seen it.
All right, then
I can get that
I
to you.
also wonder why the resolution doesn't state as attached to the resolution.
We don't attach documents to resolutions.
We've had a problem in the past where,
There's been a policy since I've been here that documents aren't attached to a resolution. All documents that are referenced in the resolution are kept on file with the borough clerk.
the borough clerk could have 3 different copies. It could change over time. And don't tell me it hasn't happened. So why isn't it part of the resolution? And why don't you have it in front of you right now?
It's been the borough's policy that we don't attach supporting documents to resolutions.
Well, I'm suggesting that's a bad policy, a very bad policy. Would you sign a contract for a house that you didn't have the survey or the site plan?
Well, those
For a
documents
contract?
always exist. It's just that we don't attach them to resolutions.
We've had the problem in the past that when the resolution was passed and then 3 months later when we went to get the document, it was a different document that was on the day of the resolution.
The resolutions are specific as to what documents are referenced, so, I mean, as documents may change, there's other resolutions that
I have,
support those changes.
who's got a copy in front of them? How do you know what you're voting on?
It's the downtown boundaries map. I mean, it does say draft in fairness, but.
Yeah, that's true, that's a draft.
What is
But that's
the-
what we were,
I know what the general GCD district boundaries are, and that's in the zoning ordinance and in the master plan. Is that what we're defining?
This
no,
is
this
an
isn't
entirely
all
separate
just
district.
GCD.
Pardon?
This isn't
It
all
is an
GCD.
entirety of
Yeah.
GCD. It is not the entirety of the.
Not only is it not the
general
entirety, but it covers outside the boundary of the GCD.
Why?
because those are the boundaries that the state program has selected.
We actually submitted different programs, but they wanted it to be more cumbersome to neighborhood area.
Yeah, my understanding was we submitted for the highway commercial district.
We did.
And we changed direction.
We
No, we did not.
We did not.
As a result of feedback, this resolution changes direction.
You know, as a result of if we wanted the $125,000, we needed to find a new defined area.
That sounds like feedback.
No, that's orders.
They
We
drew
didn't
the
have a
map,
choice.
okay,
It wasn't a
Michael?
suggestion.
They drew the map,
And so what's in the map? Is East Front Street in the map?
yes,
Yes,
Is West Front Street in the map?
yes.
yes.
What is not in the map?
It's easier to say what it is. I mean, it goes from Drew's to the fishery, it encompasses all the way to the waterfront, it encompasses up Broad Street to Third Street.
Across the street from your house.
Yeah, it does encompass across the street from your house as well, along First Street, and then down to Broad.
What's your map?
Victoria has an
Have you-
electronic
Yeah, I have it on
device.
my
I don't
iPad.
have an
I'll
electronic
certainly give
device.
it to you. Look at it.
Have you seen the draft, Mike?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I looked in the book, I worked with Michelle to get the resolution, and it wasn't part of the
So
book.
when you got the resolution, why didn't you say, where's the map?
Because I came tonight thinking it
No,
would
no,
be in
you
the book.
you got the resolution this afternoon?
Yes,
Why didn't you ask for the map then?
because I thought that I could come to the meeting and open that book and find the map.
Okay.
You
so-
could have asked for it then, and you would have helped us correct this error. But instead, you got
We
us,
can get you
okay?
that.
Yeah, we can get you a map.
And Victoria has it on an electronic device right now, if you'd like to see it. We have all, and your original question, Mr. Lane, was have we seen the map? We have all seen the map that is proposed. We have seen a color-coded map reference, which was your original question, do the members of the dais know what the map is? We do. It is not in this actual paper packet, you are correct.
And I suggest you really think about the policy when you have attachments to a resolution that are not part of the resolution.
Thank you for that suggestion.
And having been to Wharton School of Business, they would tell you you're doing it wrong. All right, Councilman Good, when the hook and ladder has been missing from the truck bay for 2 or 3 weeks now, did the fire department make arrangements for coverage from other fire departments?
Yes, it does.
Did it?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Councilwoman McDermott, we passed a resolution on weeds and sidewalks, and encumbrances to pedestrians. Have we, as part of your enforcement, has there been any strong emphasis put on that?
There were some summons issued out, specific addresses, we're not gonna disclose,
No.
but,
I've discussed this with Mike already, he knows there has been.
yeah.
He sends me pictures every day, and I send them out, and I tell him that I sent them out.
Has anyone besides Mike,
Yes,
is what I'm getting at?
Yes.
No, no,
Have
anyone
any
besides
members-
Mike what?
Have any members of the council?
yes, I've submitted it, Councilman Sheridan has submitted some.
How many, I think Steve's kind of sick of getting pictures from me on
Sure,
certain
absolutely.
things, so.
Yes, we've all done it.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Thank you.
I actually submitted through the website.
Yeah, okay.
It's our
Now-
town too.
All right, that's all I
But thank
had
you for asking. but thank
That's
you
all
for
I had
asking.
on committees and resolutions. Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Graham?
Elmer Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council.
Good evening.
A few things on Resolution 27619, with the purchase of the Dodge Ram truck.
Yes.
Under state contract. Can you explain that, Steve?
The Fire Bureau collects funds for fire inspections, and their funds are dedicated for furthering that effort. In this particular instance, they have need of a new vehicle to conduct those inspections. They haven't had a new car in quite some time, and they made a request. It's a reasonable request, so they're going to get a vehicle to conduct fire inspections.
All right, now how does that affect the taxpayers of this borough?
Actually, it doesn't affect them at all directly, because the funds for this are paid for by fees for the individual fire inspections. It's not paid for by direct taxpayer levy.
Okay. Resolution, I guess, 28019, something like that.
28019 is a reduction in performance bond for a project that's been under construction. Once the developer has met a portion of their obligations, they're entitled to reduce the performance bond. Our engineer advises us as to whether or not their request is reasonable. And once that is determined to be reasonable, we can reduce their performance bond. So that's what this does.
Okay, and then, again, does that affect the taxpayers?
Not at all.
Okay. One last thing. I was by the Cornucopia restaurant today. What's going on with that? That's been closed for some time.
We don't have a current update, but there was, first they were closed for vacation, and then they're doing some upgrades possibly, but we don't have a definitive answer yet.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Ironically, to that point, the shuttle bus driver from Saturday stopped in my office today at work. He used to work in the Cornucopia back in 1989. So he was glad to be back in Keyport on Saturday, so that was good. Anyone else from the public? Mr. Schramm?
Jack Straw, 230 Main Street. On the purchase of the Dodge Ram truck, it says state contract T2099. Is that who's purchasing the truck, the borough?
Yes.
And is it a pool of vehicles that the state has when you need something, you purchase out of the pool, or how does that work?
The state goes out and, does a general procurement for their purposes, and then they allow subdivisions and other governmental entities to piggyback on the pricing that they obtain.
Okay, that's what I thought. So it's not somebody local. It's a.
There's usually the two or
it's a
three
state
firms
contracts, right, that are approved.
that are approved, yeah.
The borough didn't go out locally and put it out to bid or anything.
No, we didn't go out to bid.
Okay.
There is an opportunity, and I did speak with Mr. Vecchio about this, if we can find a contract, a local vendor who chooses to beat the state contract by more than 10%, we could purchase from a local person, but he was unable to do that.
Yeah, it's a lot of times it's difficult. The state already has a contract.
It is,
The
yeah.
only reason I asked about the fire department is the three Keyport car dealerships and the Hazlet dealership always fund all the fire departments.
This isn't for the fire departments, for the fire bureau.
I understand. But I didn't think it was a case where it was going out locally, but I just wanted to ask.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Mr. Lane?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to come across. What I was trying to get at on the code enforcement, and Steve's right, I have put in a number, but I haven't seen any of them cleared. I've seen one in which the vegetation is dying because
Sure.
winter's coming.
I can tell you that unfortunately, it takes a long time. You have to issue a notice of violation for a period of time and allow them to abate it, and then if they don't, then you can issue a summons and bring them to court. I understand it's frustrating, but that's the process that we have to employ.
But one of the other things that's frustrating, there's no feedback loop to somebody who writes a complaint, that the complaint's been dealt with.
I can tell you that we're working on a new online system that will provide that feedback. It should be rolled out before the end of the year.
I think that's fantastic, we need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Have a motion to close?
Motion?
Second. All in favor?
Mayor,
Yes.
I apologize, I have a question, I didn't mark it on my,
No problem.
for 28019, reduction of the performance bond for Keyport 44 Realty.
Yep.
Can we clarify who that is first, for the public?
The corporate name is Keyport 44 Realty. Trevor, I believe, did,
Is that Green Grove?
don't know. I'm looking in.
That's okay. The way that it reads is that we're reducing, are we holding on to $11,000 or are we holding on to $1,000?
We're holding on to 1302.
So it's
in cash.
11,721 plus 13, we're holding on to, wait.
Yeah, it's 1302 in cash, and $11,721 as a bond.
Which is a percentage of, okay, okay. Thank you. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, it's okay.
It is detailed, I believe in the report that Trevor
I think it's the
included.
Chickarora project.
Yeah.
4-unit townhouse building, Keyport 44 Realty.
It is Chingarora.
Yeah.
I said, Len's gone already, unfortunately.
That's okay. That's correct.
Total bond amount was $43,411, and based upon our site observation, we estimate the overall bond improvements are approximately 71% complete on site. In accordance with municipal land use law, our office recommends the following action: a reduction in the cash deposit to an amount not less than $1,302, a reduction in performance guarantee to a face amount of no less than $11,721, so the above amount equals $13,023 or 30% of the original guarantee.
Okay.
And that's reflective of his assessment that they've completed 71% of the work.
Yeah.
It's detailed in the report attached to the resolution.
Okay.
Although that does segue something though. I know it's not technically part of the consent agenda, but I guess I have that privy to go off rail a little bit.
Yep.
Do we have an update on the Green Grove apartments? Like, when are they opening?
I can check with the inspectors.
They got like, now renting.
They got all their final COs and.
That's my understanding. I think Steve O'Dwyer is renting an apartment there. I'll find out tomorrow definitively and let you know. 231 Atlantic Street.
Steve, there's part,
I think he's 231 Atlantic. Okay, so he must have changed his mind.
there's portions of that, there's portions of the resolution that address dumpster enclosures.
On what resolution?
Not this one.
Okay,
The planning board resolution, since the mayor brought it up
Okay.
at Green Grove,
yeah,
that address the upgrade of dumpster enclosures.
yes.
And also, they need to establish passive recreation back where the pool used to be. Right now, they're parking cars back there, which is an explicit no.
This would be, the performance bond would be held until they make those improvements.
Right.
And then we would release the funds to them. Sometimes performance bonds just sit there because nobody comes and says, hey, we did this, so give us our money back. They'd rather just lose the money and be able to do, but the Trevor is gonna inspect this at some point.
Yep.
But I'll make sure those issues are raised.
That's why I just wanted the point of clarification, Councilman, also that this wasn't the Green Grove apartment.
Yeah,
complex.
thanks.
No problem.
I made a mistake.
No worries.
Yeah.
And I think the Green Grove project would love to have only had that amount of money on a performance bond. All right, so, can I have a motion to, approve the consent agenda? I did that already.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Good.
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
Councilmember Patapoulos.
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, next is a public hearing adoption of ordinance number 1519, revised parking restrictions in municipal parking lots, and the clerk will read the ordinance by title, please.
Amending Chapter 7 Traffic to reflect revised parking restrictions at certain municipal parking lots.
Have a motion to open to the public?
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public wish to come forward regarding this ordinance? Mr. Graham?
Albert Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. Just have a simple question regarding this. Can you all explain this amendment, this ordinance?
Sure.
This, establishes certain, time limits on the parking lot for the, Benjamin Terry and Veterans Park. As part of the refurbishment of the park, a small parking area was established to allow people to have parking spaces. And one thing we noticed after the park was completed, that some cars were parking there and staying for days on end without moving at all. This establishes a 3-hour limit during Monday through Saturday, during which time you can only park for 3 hours between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So that it would require that cars would be moved at least once every 24 hours.
I'm sorry, but this also includes, just for clarification, This also includes, down on American Legion
Oh, I'm
Drive.
sorry, I thought,
Sorry, is that okay?
yeah, no, that's
Am I
fine.
wrong?
I'm, which one is it? Because
It's all of it.
Okay.
We had to redo it.
That's right, you're right.
So,
So on American Legion Drive, if you're driving down American Legion Drive, everything to the south of the roadway is municipal parking lots. And this establishes the same hours for parking in those areas as well. But there's a time limit and you have to move after a certain period of time.
so it allows us to put up signage also, Mr. Graham. So, we recently paved a part that was formerly gravel that was back there that a lot of people didn't even realize was municipal property. So now that the lot is finished, we want to be able to put up signs and designate that that is municipal parking, so that there's not people just parking there unlimited.
Okay, the police department should be able to enforce that ordinance, right?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Mr. Rollins?
George Wallen, 54 2nd Street. Does this also include the overflow trailer parking?
The overflow trailer parking, is that part of the Green Grove? I mean, Green Acres?
No, that's the former Steamboat
Museum.
Dock Museum.
Yes.
It's a separate block and lot. It has never been designated as an official parking lot. We use it for that purpose, but it is not included in this ordinance. I don't think I've seen anybody parking there long-term.
Well, there's a trailer that I've been in touch with Mr. Good in recent.
Yeah,
So that's
Reference.
actually something, sorry.
that's the trailer of one of our vendors.
That's the kayak vendor, because we
Right.
don't want them stored around the boathouse all night.
I know, but I'm assuming everybody read the lease.
Yes.
Nowhere in the lease does it state that that trailer is allowed across the street.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
We're using discretion. Yeah.
What's the sense of drawing up a lease then?
Well, the lease is
Which
for the building.
boathouse.
Right.
Yeah.
And if there was gonna be some extra, shouldn't have been added onto the lease.
I guess it could have gone either way.
But obviously it's going the other way.
Well,
I mean, the season is
I'm
over
okay with
at
the
this
way it
point.
went. You might not be, but I am. I'm okay with it, with,
No, as a
Yeah.
taxpayer, again, this town is a business. You are there to run the business for us. As a taxpayer, I have a problem with that.
okay. What's the problem?
That is there 24/7.
Okay.
It's certainly not there
Nowhere's-
now.
Pardon?
It's not there now.
Yes, it is.
I drove by this morning. It
Are
wasn't-
you a ready man?
I might have come back, but I don't think it's there now.
It has to go.
The government has decided that it would be beneficial for the community to have this operation in town. That is,
The government?
yes, this governing body, this
Okay.
government decided to authorize a lease with this
Right.
individual
For a building.
for a building and his operation.
Right.
Okay, we think it's good for the community. That, there was a discussion afterwards about him having his kayaks and everything around the boathouse, which we didn't think was a good idea.
Okay.
So we allowed him to store it there, okay? The season is over, he's wrapping up, we can address this next year.
It will be addressed next year.
I think abracadabra, a little rabbit just chimed in my ear that it will, or it has been, and his season is done.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
It was there when I.
Maybe I should take that.
Yeah, please.
He's moving the trailer tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, he's moving the trailer tomorrow.
When he turns his keys in.
So abracadabra, it's still there.
And he has moved it in the past, I mean, he has operations
He has-
elsewhere. It has
Trust
moved.
me. Trust me. Don't-
Okay, thank you for your commentary. We are aware that it's there. It was what your question was. I believe your question was
Yeah,
answered.
but how do we do a lease and authorize the back 40 to be given away? How do we do that?
I don't know that it was a back door being given away.
I
He
said
had-
back 40.
Oh, I think it's a back door, sorry.
That's all right.
I think if he wanted to move the trailer, he could move the trailer and bring it back every day, or he didn't have to. So he found it easier to leave it there, and maybe he bought more canoes and kayaks. Maybe in the beginning, he was hauling it back and forth to Madawan where his
He
other
was.
establishment was. The trailer was not there in the beginning every night.
I
It
think-
was then, because I actually asked about it, I agree, I asked about it too, and when I found out whose it was, it made sense.
It
I'd rather,
doesn't make sense.
I'd rather it
If you give a
be-
gentleman a lease,
Mhm.
and he fills out the lease, and he signs the lease, and the council approves the lease, therefore, how does something else get added on?
It didn't get added on. It's a
Right,
fee.
that's
It's
my
part of his
point.
fee. He's not leasing the parking spot. We didn't charge him for the
Exactly,
parking
so it's been there
spot.
for 24/7, so that's pretty good then. So the hot dog guy can come down, rent that area there, and then park his trailer across the street? Rather
Actually,
than
he's
take
been
it off
leaving the hot
premise?
dog. He's been
Well,
leaving the hot dog
I haven't
place.
looked at his yet, but, you know, if you want, I can pull it up and look at it.
I think George is right. You know, it's, the fact of the matter is, we have a lease and that didn't address this, and it should be in the lease at the very minimum. Even if there's not some kind of additional remuneration for it, it should be at least in the lease.
So we should lease the parking spot out for the summer?
No, it should be, or it should be in the, not so much the parking spot.
should be
but
worded
like
within-
somewhere in there that, you know, because it also is gonna be concerned with insurance, what happens if, you know,
It gets broken into.
something along those lines where, or the thing bursts into flame, I don't know, but it should be covered. That's the fact of the matter, it should be covered.
Thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Regarding the parking ordinance, Mr. Gallo stated that we wanted to ensure that the cars are moved at least once in the 24-hour period. And I think that's a good goal. But I think there's a more important goal, and that's to ensure the parking is there for use of the park, people who use it, for residents of the borough who use the park. And ensure the parking is there to support the downtown businesses, restaurants, bars, entertainment. And which is more than just ensure it overnight, or it's moved in 24 hours. And to expand on that thought, at Veterans Park, parking area, the way the ordinance is written right now, I can park my car at 6:05 in the evening, and I do not have to move it again until 11:55 the next morning. Now, in the summertime, 6:05 in the evening is a prime time for people to use the park. And the problem we're having is the local residents are using the parking spaces as a way to avoid parking on their street. And it's taking away parking from all the rest of the Keyport residents. So I think your time is flawed from 6 in the evening till, I'm sorry, from 9 in the evening to 9 in the morning. Because you allow a 3-hour window before 9 and a 3-hour window after 9. And on Sunday, which is should be one of the busiest days in the park, there's no parking restriction at all. I think you need to rework the ordinance. I think if you want to make sure the park is available to residents up till after dark, then the restriction ought to say between 12 midnight and 6 in the morning. It's got to be. It's the only allowed time for overnight parking. Because when you move the timeline to 12 midnight, that means that I can still park it at 9 o'clock at night because there's a 3-hour window before the 12 midnight starts. So I think your residence is flawed. Second, you're only allowing 3-hour parking in the park. If I'm going to bring a canoe down, take it off my car, and launch it in the water, I'm going to spend a lot more than 3 hours with that activity. If I'm going to bring a barbecuer down and set up and have a party with my neighbors, that could easily be more than 3 hours. So I think for the park, the 3-hour limit is too short. Now in the downtown, you look at the downtown, we have the Uptown Keyport Bar and Grill with outside entertainment that runs well into midnight. We have Berluz. We have other restaurants in town where the prime eating time is between 6 and 9. And people stay in those places after 9. And so I think your times are flawed, very flawed.
But if the ordinance is done at 9 o'clock, they can still stay there.
No.
So if they arrive for dinner at 6 o'clock and they stayed until 9:30, they're fine.
You're missing the point. We now have mixed use in the downtown.
Mhm.
So now we're saying residents and these rental units above the stores can park between 6:05 in the evening and 11:55 the next morning, every day of the week.
9 and 9.
No, 3
Right, but
hours
if we-
before and
right.
3 hours
Okay,
after.
all right.
So it's between 6:05 in the evening and 11:55 the next morning. So I have parking, all-night parking for every resident living in the downtown area. Is that what you want?
What's wrong with that?
I think it's a mixed
I
purpose
think
of all
you're
the
gonna-
parking lots, but we don't want people
I-
there for days on end is really where this is gonna be addressed.
But
Especially
they'll-
in the parks, Mr. Lane, I can tell you and vouch that I have been at the Cedar Street, Benjamin Terry, Olson, and, Veterans Park every single Sunday, and I have never seen the parking lot full, except for 2 vehicles that were not moving consistently for a week on end, each time.
I think that,
So this isn't to go and sit there and tire stripe in the parks, right, like you're saying out in Kayak.
Well,
But if it is something that the people aren't moving their vehicle for a week on end, it gives them, the police, the ability to address something.
Sherry, I walk by this park in the morning now, very frequently,
Mhm.
and there's more than a half dozen cars in the lot, and there's not a person in the park.
There's also a half dozen cars in the back municipal lot too, as you just said. We didn't just adopt mixed use. I mean, there's been apartments above all the storefronts for how many years? They have been parking in the lots overnight.
We are adding more and more mixed use in the downtown.
I think,
And so you've set it up, I'm just saying you have set it up so if I rent an apartment in the downtown, I can park at 6:05 in the evening, every day of the week, all night until 11:55 the next morning.
So, this is gonna come out sarcastically, and I don't mean it sarcastically. Are you saying that we shouldn't allow the residents to park there?
No, I'm saying, well, first of all,
So you
up
d-
till now, my perception is that in the Green Acres area, we don't allow overnight parking.
Correct? That's not what we're talking about.
Right, right. So now we're saying that these parking areas can be used, and that's what you're saying, these parking areas can be used for overnight parking for the people renting in the downtown. If that's your decision, okay.
but if I may, Mike, first of all, that's the way it's always been. There have been no restrictions on these lots, okay? People could park there for 3 days at a time and they wouldn't have an issue. Okay, so we're tightening it up and requiring that they move at some point. Yes, there are people who are moving into apartments over the stores. We'd like to encourage that. As citizens of this community, they're entitled to have some reasonable parking accommodations as well. One of the things that we try to do when we're considering these types of things is ask the question, do we really have a problem, okay, that needs to be addressed? As the mayor said, and I drive by that park every morning myself too, I've never seen the parking there maxed out. I've never seen every spot taken up, and that includes weekends, it includes Sundays, I drive through town sometimes. So we don't have a problem that needs to be addressed. The problem that needs to be addressed is people need to move their cars that they think they can park there for weeks on end. And this ordinance does that. If there is an issue in the future, we can always change the ordinance, okay? But let's see how it works out.
As long as you're aware, you're setting it up so people can park overnight, and that's your intention. Okay.
But you've also identified that, that the Green Acres lots, which include Fireman's Lot, the larger part on American Legion Drive, and the boat ramp are not supposed to be. We cannot time those by law. We can't put a 3-hour time limit on it, right? So, and we see how that's detrimental to us, right? So that's good and that's bad. When the boat goes out to sea, if there's 70 people on the boat, and there was a key word in that sentence, I said if, then that's 70 spots in the parking lot that can go out to sea for 10 hours, when other parking lots have 3-hour time limits. So is there a perfect solution to everything? No. But if we have a little bit of all different types of parking in town, I think that gives the best of all worlds to the different types of people coming into town to visit, people coming to dine and shop, people that live here.
And I was just, again, for Veterans Park, 3-hour time limit will put a cramp in the
We did discuss that, actually, Mr. Gallo and I said that,
Keyport.
same thing for kayaking,
Yeah.
that would not really be cumbersome of their trip. But I'm pretty certain that if someone had gone down for kayaking, their car's not gonna be there for 5 days on end. And
No.
we wanted to have some kind of consistency, so we made it with the same type of timing that the other timed lots in the town have.
I'm sorry, the kayaking issue is the fact you have a 3-hour time limit,
I understand.
and I don't think that's sufficient for somebody who's gonna use the water.
What I'm saying is I don't think anyone's gonna identify that car and call the police and say that that car's been there for 2 days. I don't think anyone is.
I'm not
Right.
talking about for 2 days. So what you're telling me is you're not gonna have enforcement of the 3-hour limit.
I've already identified that it's there so that if we have a problem suspected vehicle, we have a way to address it. And until we have identified a concurring issue in that park, I don't foresee us enforcing it on a regular basis every day.
All right, so what you're saying is as long as the utilization of the lot is low, you will not be enforcing the 3-hour limit.
I don't foresee why we would even, we use our resources of police manpower to do it.
All right, thank you for that insight.
No problem.
Andrew Kelsey, 29 St. Peter's Place. First, the time limits on parking are not an effective way to manage parking. Second, isn't there an ordinance about cars parked in the same spot for 48 hours?
Yes.
Does that only apply to the streets?
Yes,
And it's not for the municipal lots?
correct.
So, if the purpose of this ordinance is to make sure people don't park for long periods of time,
But can I clarify something real quick?
Yes.
Sorry. It's not only municipal lots. There are just, the business district area is timed. So the municipal lot behind McDonald's is also from 6 to 6. It is 3-hour parking. Is that what your question was? As well as Broad Street and West Front Street?
No,
At the
the-
same time.
what you guys and Mike Lean were discussing were the lots, well, the ordinance
The new
addresses,
lots.
yeah, the
It's
new lots, yeah.
addressing our new lots in the town. that we didn't
Right,
have before.
and the concern is that people are leaving cars there overnight, or at least at the parks, the Benjamin Terry lot, the new lot.
So, the entire thing encompasses to the fact that these lots that we're addressing in this revision of the ordinance did not exist before.
Right.
They were pretty, non-maintained areas, truth be told, right? There's no disclosure of that or anything,
Right.
or hiding that. So, residents were a little lax for a very long time, parking there, oil leaks, whatever, they parked their non-maintained vehicles. And we didn't really have anything from our end to stop that, right?
Right.
And maybe because it wasn't in the best condition, it wasn't enforced or looked at, kind of turned their heads. Now that we've spent the money and we've upgraded those areas, it's a concern.
No, I understand, but if the concern is keeping those vehicles out as an overnight or a long-term storage, why was, at least for the park lot, why was that turned into a 3-hour limit and not a no 24 or no overnight parking or?
Just keep it consistent with the other municipal lots that,
Just to
because
keep
those
it
aren't
simple.
Green Acres, the lots where we put the 2 new lots are not Green Acres funded. So the other municipal lots in town that are not Green Acres are no overnight parking or the 3 hours.
And one other point on that, Mayor, it's reasonable to allow residents in that area to park their cars there overnight. I don't know why we would put a declaration that we would have no overnight parking here and force people to circle the block looking for a spot.
I'm just trying to
It's
understand,
more
I'm just
people-
understanding what you're trying to solve. If
There's
it was overnight or you don't want somebody's junker sitting there for
Extended period of
extended
time.
period of
Okay.
extra vehicles from a household just sitting there.
Yeah, right, okay. All right.
Is what we've identified occurring continually in both of those areas.
Yeah, I see that on that unpaved lot in the corner of
Church.
Church and
Yeah.
or Third, wherever. That's all, thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a question. Are we doing street cleaning on any of these lots? Like we do with the main, here?
We do have a routine where we clean them when needed.
So are we gonna post that so that we don't have any more parking there?
No, we do the cleaning when there was nobody parking there, when the sweeper was out. They're not, we don't have sweeping times when the lots are closed.
Anyone else in the public? Mr. Straugh?
Jack Straub, 239 Main Street. I did have a conversation with Mr. Lane. He called me at KBBC, and I do agree with him on one point, and I'm talking specifically about the newly paved portion of the lot south of American Legion Drive. Before that was paved, there was no real delineation about what part of the parking lot belonged to the building and what part belonged to the town. Now we can clearly see. And the line actually came from American Legion Drive up to the end of the new parking lot being the borough. So Mr. Lane's correct in saying that you could park in the new lot, for example, at 6 p.m. on Saturday and not move your car until noon on Monday. So those spaces aren't available to those businesses, Berluz or those businesses. As far as the residents that live above the stores, many of those stores have the other part of that lot that's their lot. That theoretically, that would be the resident's place to park, or the resident can park in the Green Acres lot overnight. So,
No, the Green Acres is not overnight.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Which one did you say was overnight?
Green Acres lots are not
Or
overnight.
not overnight, which ones are overnight?
The ones that we're addressing now.
Yeah, the borough-owned lots, the ones that are not Green Acres, south of American Legion.
The newly paved is overnight.
Is it, right now it is?
No.
I'm
it's
sorry, the
going
new
to
ordinance.
be also.
The new ordinance.
Correct.
But other than that, just Fireman's Lot, Fireman's Park, is that overnight?
No.
It's not, okay. So, but to Mr. Lane's point, if there's overnight parking allowed in these lots, then, for example, all through Sunday, theoretically, residents could park there and take up those spaces for the business.
The residents that live over Berluz, yes, they can.
Okay. So, again, there was a little bit of confusion, but I agree with him in, I don't know whether it's a matter of making it no overnight parking, or, again, many residents have parking available in the resident portion, or the portion of the lot that's owned by the owner.
That doesn't mean their landlord made that available to them.
I understand. But I agree with Mr. Lane in that, you know, the way it's worded will allow people to park for longer than just.
It's consistent with all of the other borough-owned parking lots in town.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Motion.
I have a motion to close the public. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the dais have any commentary?
I just have a quick question. So
Sure.
9 to 9 three-hour parking seems pretty typical. I feel like I've seen that. That's fairly typical standard across a lot of the towns in Bayshore, right?
It is, yeah. And as I mentioned earlier, if an issue does arise, and we certainly have not observed people overnight parking, you know, for, that maximizes the lot, and there's nothing available, you know, all day Sunday. If those conditions do arise, we can address them in the future.
Behind McDonough's, that municipal lot, is that till 6 or 9?
I'm not certain off the top of my head, I'd have to check.
We made this to match that?
I believe we did.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sheridan?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco?
Yes.
Councilmember Fotopoulos?
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott?
Yes.
Can I have a motion authorizing the clerk to publish the ordinance as
Move
adopted?
it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain or nay? Ordinance introduction, ordinance to amend salary ordinance to add management assistant. The clerk will read the ordinance by title.
This is an ordinance of the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, amending and superseding the ordinance fixing the salaries of the various officers, clerks, and employees of the Borough of Keyport.
Do I have a motion to introduce?
Move it.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sheridan?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco?
Yes.
Councilmember Fotopoulos?
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott?
Yes.
I have a motion authorizing the clerk to publish.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain or opposed? Next, we have communications by consent. We have items number 1 through 5. And then we have items to receive and file, items 6 through 8. Can I please have a motion to open to the public for
Motion.
all items 1 through 8?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public wish to come forward regarding items 1 through 8 on the communications by consent?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Steve. It's great to be here. Thanks for a lovely evening discussion tonight.
We just need,
My name, Martin, so exactly 33 Lincoln Avenue in Keyport, New Jersey. So we have, first and foremost, a donation to the Keyport Recreation Department in the amount of $1,000. Our hope is, I believe, we'll be able to submit this to the Borough Council for review. I know that in the past we have submitted donations specifically to the Keyport Recreation for children-specific activities. And we would like to do this to be happy to the Keyport Council.
Defer to council on this.
We're not gonna do it at the meeting.
Receiving, wait, accepting a donation.
Yeah, why not?
No, it is, I just don't have the
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I do also want to note that the donation is due to the efforts of our flea market on Sunday. So we would like to, as a motion of good thanks.
That's
and
the
goodwill.
issue that we're actually reviewing. I was a little bit confused about the connection with the Recreation Department. As part of the flea market and the borough's, I guess, I don't want to characterize it as an agreement, but as part of the Kiwanis Club's ongoing use of the area for the flea market, we want to make sure that because there's no agreement, there's no lease agreement in place or any consideration that's been provided for that area. We just want to make sure that this donation is not confused with anything else as far as that use. So that's what we're reviewing right now. I've looked at a few issues earlier today, and I've discussed matters with Steve and with the mayor, so we'll have an answer on that pretty shortly. So obviously the gesture's appreciated, we can just hold on to that, and we'll get back to you on whether or not it's appropriate to accept that considering the relationship regarding the flea market.
Sounds good. Just for the record, I know that we have given a donation in the past. What's the difference from previous to now?
The issue that's come up is, I don't think it's been reviewed specifically with regard to the use of the flea market. There's some green acres restrictions on that area that we need to further review. So, it's the first that's come to my attention, and I've had some experience with green acres issues in the past, so I just want to make sure that the borough is not susceptible to any Department of Environmental Protection, enforcement based on that use. So before we go any further, I just think that has to be reviewed, and we just need something in writing and on file that the entire council is aware of before any action is taken.
And so for the record, right now, the council and on the borough attorney's recommendation, we will be denying a donation to the Keyport.
Just not accepting it at this time.
Thank you. Additionally, I am here, I know that I've been speaking with.
actually, if I could just hold off 1 second, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to characterize it.
Exactly, I don't know that I
Yeah,
appreciate
that's
that
not
terminology.
true.
I think what we're actually trying to do is clarify so that there isn't anything out to the public. So when someone's coming to use a parking space in a parking lot, it doesn't appear to be that we were given $1,000, so we should make an approval. Okay, so
Understood.
we're trying to make sure that everything is clean cut,
Mhm.
and I don't apologize for doing that.
Yeah, of course, no, we appreciate you looking into it as well. We will hold on to this and we'll be.
Well, stand by.
Yeah, that's
Stand
fine.
by. So there's a difference between holding off and refusing. I just want to clarify that.
Of course.
Mayor, can we give them a letter of appreciation for making the gesture? And one thing that has nothing to do with the other, just for thank you for the consideration.
We'll take that to consideration.
I do want to point out that we do have our council here tonight, newly elected executive board of the Kiwanis Club of Keyport. The current president, going into my third term. We also have Mike Ellithorpe, our secretary, Glenn Ellithorpe, our treasurer, and President-elect Tina Wright. I know that we've discussed, Mayor, about the Keyport Kiwanis sponsoring a sign downtown. I have approved renderings from our board tonight. We approved this at the last meeting. If it's okay, I'd like to distribute for the council's approval and review. I know that there's still further discussion to be had about the location of where the sign will go. However, we just want to make sure that if we do move along with the process, we actually have the support and approval of the mayor and council.
So how your item was listed on the agenda tonight was for us to receive and file, which means that gives us time to review it.
Of course.
As indicated back in August and the beginning of September, we received your information. We talked about this in the early spring. We received it at the end of August. We had some matters come up in the borough that superseded, including Mr. Gallo being on vacation, and some emergencies, both in the borough and out of the borough, that had to be tended to. And also, we wanted to make sure that this was consistent with goals of KBBC visual improvement. So unfortunately, that didn't fall in line with your October 1st deadline that we were never made aware of until last minute. So that's why that communication was pulled, as you're aware. So since that time frame, we've had a KBBC meeting, and I do believe that there will be signage improvements going on throughout the borough, as that is an initiative of Mr. Brown. And we're not 100% sure if it's consistent with the signage that he was proposing.
That's, along those lines, I mean, we're interested in having a broader discussion about signage throughout the community at the entrances to the town, so that there be a consistent look and a branding to the community. So,
Which is
and
part
we
of
also,
this new grant that we just got for the clarification.
we also have some older signs around town that we discussed at the last meeting about needing refurbishment. So we want to make sure that there's a consistent look to it, and we will be probably having sign sponsorships that we'll be offering to businesses or organizations that would like to sponsor them. But we want them to all look the same. So and unfortunately, we're just not ready to go forward with that right at this point.
Sounds good. I appreciate being made aware of it at this meeting. I was not, I did not know this information prior to. As you indicated, I do wish to still distribute as it is to receive.
They all have copies of them.
We
You
have,
guys have it?
yeah, we have
Just wanna
some.
make sure it's brought just in case. It's in black and white, so I have color
No, they
copies.
have color copies.
We got color.
Okay, cool, awesome. I just saw the.
Yeah, we have the electronic version.
Sounds great. We appreciate your time tonight. We look forward to continuing the discussion, and please let us know if the donation will be accepted on behalf of the Keyport Council and Recreation Department after further. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to come forward on items on the communications by consent, items 1 through 8? Mr. Lane?
Did I hear you indicate there was 8 items on the communications?
Yeah, it was amended. A last minute amendment, addition.
Well, they weren't in the agenda that was posted on.
It was not posted earlier today, and I actually allowed for these 2 items to be added, and I can read those 2 items out loud. You're absolutely
I would
right, Mr.
appreciate
Lane.
that.
No problem. I'll read them since Michelle got them on the agenda for me. I'll take the onus and read it. Number 5 is on communications for approval. It's item number 5, Hank Young, who is the fire chief currently, for the 2020 parade chairman, requesting permission to hold the St. Patrick's Parade on Saturday, March 21st, 2020, beginning at 1 p.m. I'll explain why that was added on late and why I approved that. I met with Chief yesterday to discuss if we were moving forward with having a parade this year, and it was confirmed yesterday. So we have to get the ball rolling because we're about 3 months behind, because there was some things on the back burner waiting to be ironed out first. So if we waited another month for the next meeting, that would have been too long to start the ball rolling for the parade committee. So I approved that to be added on today. And the last one is item number 8. It says to just receive and file. and it's a letter of resignation dated October 15, 2019, from Errol Lamberson, who's our plumbing subcode official, effective, October 24, 2019. And the reason that was added late is because he had verbally given his notice, but he had not put it in writing until today.
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mike, but what was the issues with regard to the parade that were,
There were no issues, we just had to talk some things out.
like,
Need to go into the roll call with that?
we don't get to know?
It was just communications that we had to have,
You say we, do you mean you?
and the chief.
That's just between the two? Okay.
And I don't know what the number is, but I submitted a letter 10/7/18 that's on the list.
Number 7.
Number 7.
Number seven.
All right, number 7. What triggered that submission was discussion at the previous council meeting about duck bills and stopping the flooding. And I think, and I copied all members of the council on some flooding that's occurred within the last couple of days.
Actually, Mr. Lane, can I stop you 1 second? Because you mentioned that at the last meeting, and we clarified that with you. We never said that the duck bills would stop the flooding. We just said that's where it rises in first.
Correct.
We never once said that that was going to prevent flooding in those areas. It's just that that's where it's coming up first, and that's where the flooding is starting.
And on many occasions, that is the primary source of flooding, when it doesn't top over the bulkhead. But it does top the bulkhead, sometimes.
Right, and I think that's where the confusion set in, is when we started talking about the two different means by which it
And-
flooded.
And building on what Mr. Gallo said earlier, he indicated we're working with FEMA to try to get a grant.
We're working every angle to try and find resources to raise that bulkhead to the height of the promenade, along the same lines as was used to raise the promenade, using same methods and materials so that it matches. And working with the owner of 149 West Front Street to raise their bulkhead, and then backfill and raise the entire parking lot.
And so I just want to emphasize that that's really the only way to stop the flooding in that area.
We agree with you. I sent you an email saying we agree with you.
But
We agreed that night at the last council meeting, too.
Right, and, well, I can't stop talking about flooding because.
That's okay, Mike,
That's
don't
fine.
stop.
We
It wouldn't be you if you
appreciate
did.
Yeah.
And, it's elevation.
Sure.
Understood.
And I was just curious, there were 2 letters from members of the fire department that were listed under, for,
Receive and file.
no, they weren't listed under.
What are they approving? What are we approving?
Yeah, that was my question, what are you approving?
It should be receiving and filing.
Right, and so, and I'm just trying to understand is, under approving, there would be some action that you're approving. And those 2 letters look to me just like, receipt and file.
Yeah, they're just advising us. I mean, that's an
Correct.
internal process.
Okay. Thank you, we can move those.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Anyone else from the public? Can I have a motion to close?
Motion closed. Second.
So with moving items 4 and 5 down to receive and file, could I have a motion in that favor?
It's also 3, 4, and 5.
So, that's 3 and 4, I apologize. I
Right side.
retract my earlier statement and say items 3 and 4 moving down to receive and file.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shannon?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Councilman Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper, yes. Councilmember Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco?
Yes.
Councilmember Patapoulos?
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott?
Yes.
Reports of departments?
We have the municipal clerk's report for September 2019. The tax water sewer collections report for September 2019. The Board of Health Treasurer's Report for September 2019, the Building Department Monthly Report for September 2019, the Municipal Court Monthly Report for September 2019, the Clean Communities Report for August 14th through October 10th, 2019.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
Oh,
All
yes.
in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
It's at the bottom of the page. I was like, where did it go? New business?
Mayor?
Yes.
As I stated in my report, and we can probably put this off until next month too, because the website isn't near being ready. But there is gonna be a fee for what's called the secure socket layer for the website, which will keep the website secure. And there may be instances on the website where a resident will submit a request for information, and that's an added additional cost. No more than $500 for the year.
Is there any way you can send us information on this proposed website?
Absolutely.
And is this different than Recycle Coach that's available to everyone in the state and
Yes.
municipalities?
Yes, this is going to be specific to Keyport.
Right, so Recycle Coach, the platform's already there, and the Monmouth County and the state back that, and then you can
Link
program it
to
to
it.
your, you can program it for your individual municipality.
Right, oh, perfect.
Have you
But
looked
it's-
into that,
It's
or?
no, actually, what the plan,
Atlantic-
but I will.
Atlantic
Absolutely.
Highlands has it up and running if you want to see a model one.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so, and it doesn't cost us anything, obviously.
Which one? Recycle Coach?
Recycle Coach.
I don't know about that. Donna has the specifics. She attended the meeting when we had her come to the mayor's Bay Shore meeting.
Yep.
So she might have more information.
Let me,
on that.
I'll be glad to talk to her about it.
I don't want to misspeak and say that there's no fee. I don't know that that's correct.
No problem, but, so we may adjust the $500 if that's the case and we decide that we want that, but primarily the fee is gonna be for URL subscription, hosting service, and secure socket layer, so the site will be secure. All right, and I will draft a note to the council to that regard, and then we can discuss it later on.
And then is the intent to have it linked to our borough website?
Absolutely. So, I mean, if you want to take a minute, I can describe it. The borough website is a good resource right now, but a dedicated website for recycling in Keyport would help residents get right to the meat and potatoes of what we need to recycle, how to recycle it, and given the current status of the way recycling is handled in New Jersey, that is really fluid and it changes from time to time. So we want to be, and it changes within a year, so we want to be able to address those changes in real time. And it's, as I stated earlier, it's been on the wish list of the recycling committee to have something like this for some time. We've got the expertise on the committee that will be able to provide the free service, if you will, of designing and launching the website, which tends to be what most of the expense is. We will link directly, we'll keep the information we have on keyportonline.com right now and link directly to the recycling website. And also, the recycling website will link to resources to the county in an efficient manner that's easily accessible and navigable to the users and the citizens of the borough.
You did a real nice job with that. Got the thumbs up from the deputy recycling.
There's a mock-up right now. I'm not going to give out the URL because it's not public, but we've been reviewing it, and you know, the way that we would do it is we would introduce a beta for the public to see and provide input, and then we would finalize the release with the updated and proper information at a near future date. The goal is before the end of the year. So there you have it. I'd be glad to, so November's meeting, we can discuss it if I get the letter out.
I just have one point of concern here, because I think one of the key things with having independent websites, and I know you said that you want to keep it up to date and current. One of my concerns, especially with the state pushing a lot of these regulations coming down to us also federally, when you have an independent website.
Federal recycling?
I know.
No, I was just asking federal.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
recycling, it's related to you.
Yeah.
Have an independent website sometimes will have resource issues and labor and information loss and gaps. My only concern is as much as we can, we want to use external resources, Monmouth County, whomever, state of New Jersey, to be the primary resource of information, because one of the things we don't want to be is a backlog of information. So that would be my only the yang to this, the opposite of this is, you know, I love the idea, but with this, don't consider reinventing the wheel if you don't have to.
Oh, definitely not. And the only reason, Councilwoman, I was asking about federal is because I'm not aware of any federal guidelines, but if there are, we're gonna need to link to that. So if you have that info, please let me know. But as far as linking to the state and the county, there are gonna be live links to, there's a methodology that web developers use to not link to material or content that will become stale. Typically, that's in hard copy PDFs. We don't have to go into the nitty-gritty here. Yeah, but that's, but we do have that aspect covered. Nothing is perfect, but certainly what you've just brought up is a concern that we actually discussed in the last recycling meeting. So I appreciate that.
I would also reach out to the department, the federal entity of environmental as well. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any business? Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor.
Unfinished business?
I just have a question for Steve.
Yeah.
So, forgive me, is there any update with Lime Lake?
Pine Buck is no more.
So then we should start researching a new Douglas lime ship.
There are no other dockless.
Motivate,
Um,
the company I've been looking into.
Yeah, I do not believe that any company is offering a dockless bike share with bicycles. They will
Right.
offer power
The
bikes
power, yes.
or scooters, but if you've got a company, I don't think
Yeah, I've been
Motivate.
looking at this, and I can't quite grasp if they do exactly what Lime did. So that's why I want to research it more, but I guess the time is now to start researching. It looks like they kind of coordinate a bike share. They do it in DC. I don't know any like small places they do it.
That may be the case. There are companies that will come in and tell you how to do it. but
Yeah,
you
which
gotta-
might be what Motivate does.
You gotta buy the bikes, you have to hire the personnel to maintain it. I haven't found anybody who does what Lime does, and they and all of their competitors have decided to get out of the business. They found it not to be profitable. Every nickel is being dumped into power scooters.
Yeah. All right, I'll do a little research and try to
What are they
find
doing
out.
with the bikes?
Can I make a recommendation, on the next one, maybe we have communication, here to Line Bike, that all their bikes be removed by December 30th from the borough, so that we're not left with their
Yeah,
bikes.
there's no help.
That is their plan. They were gonna leave them here until the winter set in, and they're just gonna go defunct.
Right, I think they were just gonna indefinitely leave them here, and I don't know that I want that either, so I
Yeah.
think we should have an end point with them, December, 30th, I think is a.
If that's the governing body's consensus, that's fine.
You wanna make a motion? No, you had a question?
You answer it.
Oh,
All right.
That was,
Councilwoman Pacheco, do you have commentary on thoughts on the December 30th?
No, I think that's a great idea. I don't want to have their bikes.
I don't really wanna market for them either, if they
Yeah,
couldn't,
that's
you know,
completely
hold
kind
up,
of vague.
you know, their thing.
I'll just start digging a little deeper into Motivate and see if there's any other companies that could provide the service.
I mean, I don't know if it's worth noting or not, now that we have a pretty viable downtown again with a lot of businesses, always looking to take on something new, might be worth some people taking a ride down. I've done it, I've spoken with them, down in Ocean Grove, their hardware store, does a rental program. Granted, people rent them for the week or the full day, but maybe one of our businesses wanna start looking into that initiative.
Certainly something to research, yeah.
That's
Thank
really
you.
interesting there. In
It's
Asbury,
Ocean Grove Hardware Store, if you, and they'll talk to you about it, they have all the information there, I've done it and spoken to them about. And you can go down and see it, and they'll tell you, I don't remember all the information, I don't have my notebook with me right now, but how often they have to replace the bikes. There's something in my head that I think they buy a new fleet every year, and then maybe raffle off to children in need at the end of the season, the bike, from that year. So they don't have to store them over the winter. There's like different things like that, but they do put them out every morning and then bring them back, and I just don't remember their code. We went with Line Bike, so I didn't look further into it.
Right,
I
I
don't
stopped
really
researching
remember it,
really
right?
on it, yeah.
But before we found Line Bike, I had gone in and met with the owners of the hardware store in Ocean Grove.
Alright, I'll research that and I'll dig deeper into this, motivate.
And maybe someone like the Fun House, that could be like a good added thing to them.
Yeah, so I'll
There's
try to
al-
report back next month on maybe do something.
look up, Second Life Bikes in Asbury Park too.
Councilman Sheridan?
Yeah, I have one item for unfinished business. I need to buy some grass.
Beach grass?
Yes, baby beach grass.
Do you really wanna reach out to,
For our planting Saturday, November 16th, if we could reach
wanna
out to
reach out to
Surfrider,
Surfrider?
if they could, if not, Steve, probably a couple of those little red signs also.
Sure, yeah, it's all relatively inexpensive, you just let us know what you need, we'll be happy to get it for you.
We were looking at the same amount as last year.
No, less.
Last.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely less.
half is what we did last year.
Yeah.
So I think we got 250 last year, so maybe
So-
another 120.
125? Surfrider might be able to do that. Is it okay if I email them, John over to Surfrider?
Yes.
I'll do that tomorrow.
No, the two of you have to do this.
Yeah, I'll email them tomorrow.
I just want to reiterate again, I was showing the pictures to, I was in a Living Shoreline seminar at ANJAC conference, and they were so impressed, because I have from before all the way to now, and they were just
So pretty.
so impressed with the work that you
Well,
guys did.
one of the things that was good was Mike Palmisano had this tool, and he had this idea
That
of
was-
how to plant that.
Yeah, that was Surfrider that brought that stuff.
It's
Yeah,
thick,
he did.
right?
Mike made a bunch of them.
But we followed the directions, and it looked like they were dead when we planted them, and it looked like they were dead 3 and 6 months after, but then all of a sudden they took off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty amazing.
Councilman Sheridan, what is the date of this?
Well, the weeding is going
It's
to
2
be Saturday, November 9th at 9 a.m. But,
And I will lead with you.
yeah, that's right. I'll work
Maybe we
it
need
out.
to do a drill on the beach.
Yeah, but no, November. But the planting is Saturday, November 16th, and if you're only gonna be on one, do the planting, it's much better.
Yeah,
Well, the
and
weeding
there's
is
not a
not
lot
fun,
of,
no.
but there's not a lot of sedge this time.
Right.
We've gotten a lot of
The
it.
sedge is what ripped my nail off.
Yeah, the sedge is very difficult to pull out, but the planting's fun, we get scouts, so we get school kids out. But yeah, we need to plant.
Yeah, I'll email them and I'll get back to you.
Thank
We
you.
can go from there. Steve will let you know.
Nope.
So one last piece of unfinished business and more of a continuation of my mayor's report from before, is that I really think we have to commend DPW staff. There's multiple reasons. We all, I think, can agree that the music festival was an amazing day for Keyport and evening. But DPW, Keene University provided a banner and identify where the trolley stop would be or the shuttle stop would be for them to pick back up when they were going back to the train station. Unfortunately, we had about 65-mile-per-hour winds. Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not much. And unfortunately, it shredded the banner overnight. So they were down there first thing in the morning, and they literally somehow rebuilt that whole banner, including adding new corners, grommets, and everything else to be able to put the banner back up. So that in itself, they must have had some kind of magic glue or something. I don't know what they did. So kudos to them. But more importantly, they have these new barricades that they can add to the top of the cones, which just provides just a nice barricade presence as opposed to just cones. And they are complete magic. They kept the 5 foot 5 inch expected full moon tide completely in the bay.
That's impressive.
The tide never came in. That's unheard of, not to have the full moon tide come in on the evening tide. Never came in. We didn't even get a puddle. I don't even know how they did it. I'm telling you, there was magic in those barriers. So you can have them duplicate that purchase order. I'm just kidding. But so I was remiss in having that in my report before. I apologize. The many efforts involved. Councilwoman McDermott served on the events committee, as well as Councilman Patopoulos for this event, KBBC, the police, Steve Gallo, numerous volunteers to be able to pull this off, and I think it's going to be talked about for quite a long time, just the different things that we did and initiatives we added to the event this year. So thank you to everyone for that collaborative effort to make Keyport shine. And with that note, we'll move on to the attorney's report. Can I have a motion open to the public?
Second.
Reminder that the public portion is kept to 5 minutes per person. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public wish to come forward? Mr. Raleigh?
George Walling, 54 Second Street. Steve, on those photos that I gave you in regards to the Emery with the water,
Yes.
what was the result?
We've since confirmed that there's a master meter at the entrance to Aero Marine, and all meter within the property is charged at the master meter.
So that hydrant was metered.
Yes.
How is that done without anything being attached to it?
There's a master meter at the entrance to the property, and that measures all water that goes onto the property.
It does.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Fleming?
Just a quick comment on tides. The full moon tide is not the high tide of Keyport. The new moon tide is the high tide.
That's the higher one, correct?
No, new moon tide was 6.9 feet.
I understand, that was the week before.
Right, okay.
I understand, but that Saturday's tide was 5.5, expected 7:47 p.m.
And the good news on Friday was that the festival wasn't on Friday.
I 100% agree with you.
Because all the cones in the parking lot were underwater.
Yes, I agree.
Real quick, under unfinished business or new business, I was hoping that this issue of marijuana dispensary and concern with putting something into our zoning ordinance relative to that would be under either new business or old business.
It's under,
Is it dead?
no.
It's not dead, it's just not, we've had a number of circumstances, including a music festival that a majority of us were working on planning. So to take on something new and to do the further review and bring it to the planning board, it was just not yet happening.
Okay, so it's not dead. All right.
And then based on your input at the last meeting, Mike, I've contacted my colleagues in the New Jersey Municipal Managers Association to determine what other communities are doing. We've started the ball rolling, but we want to make sure that we do this correctly.
All right, that's great, because when we did the ecstasy ordinance, we copied the Houston, Texas ordinance.
We don't need to stroll that far.
All right, that's great. Real quick, tax assessors report. The tax bills are going, new assessments are coming out in November. We had talked about in the past of having the information on the borough-wide assessment be known. Also in having a sample set of properties that we track to see what it looks like. Anything going on in that area? Is there going to be a tax assessor's report?
Tax assessor's been asked to provide a report at least a half a dozen times. I will follow up with him and make sure that that happens.
Is the link,
Wait,
is
so
the link
he's-
up there on the, to the mod 4?
It is, yes.
Wait, so he's been asked for it and hasn't provided it?
He's provided it sporadically, and I told him I need it for every monthly meeting. Right, consistently. Yes, I will speak with him.
The mod 4 won't have the 2020 data.
Well, it will once it's posted.
Yeah, once it's posted, but, you know, I'm suggesting that council may want to have an oversight and to just understand what's going on.
No, that was I'm sorry, that was a non sequitur, so.
And we did put up a lot of links related to taxes.
The TAP grant. Two things. You talked about a public meeting?
Yes.
Okay. I put in an open request for the latest information on the budget and the plan.
Yes.
And I got the same information that was handed out at the meeting.
That's correct, because the information that you're seeking is presently being negotiated and is unavailable at this point. It's subject to negotiation.
Can we get it before the meeting?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, once the contract is approved and the scope is approved, it'll be fully available, but it hasn't been done yet.
But you're saying when the contract's approved, all the concept plan will be locked?
No,
Oh.
I've explained this to you before, Mike. There will be a public meeting, at which point your input will be sought. Why would we have a public meeting unless we wanted to modify
I'm
what
asking if we can get the information prior to the public meeting.
Once it's finalized in terms of the scope of the project, yes, okay? But you should understand that part of the scope of the project is to be able to modify it based upon the public's input.
Oh, I agree with you, and that, by having it prior to the public meeting, it gives the public more knowledge
Understood.
to give you input.
Yeah, it's just not finalized yet, and by way of explanation, I can tell you that this is a federal procurement. These are federal funds that are being administered by the Federal Highway Authority. The effort involved in managing this grant is subject to the provisions of the Brooks Act, and it is extremely onerous and burdensome. If you make one wrong move, you could jeopardize the grant funds. So the state of New Jersey has decided to manage the procurement process and pre-qualify the vendors that you can select from using. We have selected a vendor, and we're just waiting for the sample documents to be sent from the state, and then we can negotiate the price with the vendor, and then we have to go back to the state and get them to approve it. So as much as, I know it's frustrating, it's very painstaking work that requires that it be done accurately and in conformance with federal regulations, so it's taking a lot longer than I would have hoped.
I'm more interested in the downstream issue,
Sure.
What's the latest status of the concept plan?
Understood.
The latest status of the budget. Attorney, email, or resolve the attorney's input, I got an email from Michelle asking for a recall of the information that was given at this public meeting, so there's some disconnect there.
Well, you had asked for updated information. Michelle sent you the most current stuff that we had, which was correct, because that was not the final documents. We're negotiating them, and documents and contracts that are being negotiated are not subject to open.
Yeah, and as I say, I look forward to getting the concept.
Sure. And we don't have any secrets here, Mike. You can come up and take a look at anything you want.
Well, I appreciate it. Oh, you mean it, so I can come up and take a look at the plan that was indicated earlier exists for 75 Manchester?
You can do that. All I have is an elevation, okay? He wants to present the plan, and,
But again, by the residents coming in ahead of time, it gives them more.
Okay, Mike, I think you've made your point on that. Do you have anything else you'd like to bring up?
I talked about the tax, the TAP. Only one other thing, the development plan I thought was an outstanding document. That's going to be applied to Mariner Village and Verdon Cove.
I'm sorry, the development plan?
Yes. There was a developer's agreement.
Yes, the agreement, yes.
Yeah, so it's going to be applied to all those.
I believe the developer's agreement for Mariners Village is already done.
Oh, really?
Yes. But, and something that the scope of, the other, well, none of this, the developer's agreement already done on the other project too, on, Longview. I can track both of them down for you if you like.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Let me just see if anyone else has anything behind them. Mr. Fox? Mr. Fox?
we, currently have a, borough clerk right now?
Yes?
We do. Then why are we hiring a manager to do the same type of work as the borough clerk for another between $30,000 and $60,000?
We're not,
I don't believe it's the same type of work.
Under your, employment, it gives pretty much the same duties as the borough clerk. So we're gonna pay twice for the same duties then?
that's not correct.
So what would be the duties of this person that we've never had before?
Actually, that's not true. We did have a person performing these duties.
It was when we had the
This is a
NPP grant
coordinator
last
for the
time.
neighborhood preservation program, and it's paid for by the grant funds. We've had this position before, and then the Christie administration and the Republicans pulled the funding out of the budget, and it's been restored, so now we can put the position back.
So the clerk can't handle
No.
the work?
No.
No, and it's actually by the recipient of the grant. You have to have a designated person for this, or we don't receive the grant.
But we have to pay for the grant too. So we're spending, what's the matching on the grant?
It's
We put in
20%.
20, I would say 25.
20% plus, it's a federal grant?
No,
No,
it's state
state
grant.
grant.
So we're paying state taxes on that plus a 20%.
I don't know what you mean by state taxes.
Well, we pay taxes to the state, so the money comes from somewhere, it's not just giving me up on the
The
machine.
municipality didn't just pay the tax to the state though to get it back. I mean, that was.
No, but it's joint, joint entire state.
But
But
it
we're still
was-
paying that plus 20% for a job that we obviously shouldn't need. We have a clerk, a deputy clerk, secretary, and administrator.
But it's in a completely new project that we're going to be doing with this grant.
How's
More
it
money's
project
coming
been done
into
before?
keeping it.
You know, before when we had it, it was the same type of project, and then moving forward with that project had to be halted. We have not been doing that type of work. This is to improve the business areas within the neighborhoods, within the municipality. So it's a neighborhood preservation grant, and it was pulled for 8 years from the Christie administration. It is now back in place, and we were selected as one of the municipalities in New Jersey to receive it to get it back active again. And it is to improve the area. We wanted this to be done out as a highway project, because it's one area that we don't currently have the money to improve the signage out there. That was originally our goal. And the state came in and said that that didn't meet their goal of the grant, but if we refined it, then they would allow us to continue with the receiving of the $125,000 grant.
Well, that's not what you list for the job position on your website.
But it's the managing of that money.
But that's not what you're advertising the job for. Basically, it's another borough clerk's position.
Yeah, I would say that the roles are similar to a clerk because you have to do all the state reporting and the record keeping. But it's
We've been doing it
specifically
the
for.
last 8 years now.
We haven't
But
had-
it's,
we
we haven't had
We
this
haven't
grant.
paid for the last 8 years, Dan.
You haven't been doing anything.
No MVP.
Not for that
No,
NPP
This is
we
a
have
whole
years.
new project that requires it,
Okay.
yeah.
And we are allowed technically, I can't say that we'll be approved because I don't know, I can't speak into the future, but we are allowed to continue to apply for the renewal of this grant once we get it up and running. So we're hoping that if the powers align, that we can get this for continuous and have continuous projects and improvements throughout the business district.
It'll be wonderful for the borough, Dan. It really will be.
And also, when we send a open request to the borough clerk, no responses. And
What
the
did it
borough
get
clerk, I got a
responded
response after the deadline.
What did you receive after the deadline?
The open request that I put in, I sent to Valerie and to the police chief with no response until I CC'd the mayor and the police commissioner.
But you did receive the response within the allotted time.
No, not from the initial request, I did not.
So I believe,
Obviously, you're not.
that you did, but maybe then you said that you didn't receive everything that you requested.
No, that was the second time. The very first request went unanswered for 8 days. As soon as I sent the CC the mayor and the police commissioner, within 24 hours you had supplied me with all the information.
I was reviewing some of the documents as well. I didn't receive them until, if I remember correctly, it was probably the 6th day, so it took me some time to go through some of the things, maybe because of the 1 day delay. I don't remember specifically, but I it was responsive to your request and that everything that we released was in there.
Right, but no extension was ever asked of me, but you have 7 days, and it's a,
Well, it's 7 business days,
yes.
so I don't know if you sent
Yeah,
a
I
request
sent
on a
that request
weekend.
out, I believe, to Val on the 6th, and I received your response on the 8th.
Well, I didn't see it because it wasn't sent to me and Valerie's not in.
Wait, I'm
So
sorry.
as
Wait,
soon
you
as
sent
I-
it on the 6th and you received it on the 8th?
No, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just want, I
No,
didn't.
no, it was like 9 days, working days before, because when I sent it to you, and the police commissioner, I got it within 24 hours from
That's
the deputy.
probably because it was sent to Valerie, not to me, and Valerie wasn't in, so when I checked her email and I saw it, that's when the time starts, when I saw it and could respond to it.
The time starts as soon, the day after it's received, not when it's opened or whatever. That's not the person in the town's fault. If Val's out for whatever reason, somebody else should be monitoring her email.
And we are.
Okay, thank you.
And just one other quick thing for the police commissioner and the fire commissioner. I think all emergency services should have proper training on dealing with special needs children. I think that's a very important thing, that fire, police, and EMS take that class. I think it's very important for the residents of our town.
Is there a specific class that you're referring to, or just in general?
Especially autism.
No, I'm sorry, I meant, you said should take a class, I'm wondering if.
They offer awareness classes on how to
Oh,
approach
okay,
special needs children.
that's a good idea.
So I know some people have it in different parts, but it should be taken by all volunteer and police. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Long?
George Long, 52nd Street. I guess I should have asked this question when I was talking to Steve. I'm sorry for not doing that. Fire hydrants on private property like that, are they owned by the borough or it's the Emery?
Everything beyond, the meter would be owned by the property owner, it's on private property.
Okay, so that hydrant would fall underneath their problems.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay. And, streetlights, we talked about that before, you guys talked about that obviously before. We have numerous streetlights out at the Central Power and Light Lines. How are they monitored?
It's a great question. How are they supposed to be monitored is through JCP&L. We have asked them on several occasions, not only, there's a few things with JCP&L. I'm sure you're also aware that they're supposed to have a program where they, every 4 years, it's mandated by the federal utility companies, corporations, that they come in and do free maintenance, right? So we have storm, and I've inquired about that as well, and we are not on their map, and we have not been on their map, and that's not okay with me either, and they are aware of that. And as far as the street lights, technically, you can report the pole number on their website, but we have done that, and they still don't get updated. So we have been in constant contact with our government representative from JCP&L. Kind of like the state, we're going to let people know that we're not settling in the town, and they will continually hear from me or Steve or whoever the powers that be until we get the proper service for what our residents deserve.
Okay. Would that fall underneath the police when they're out patrolling the
Yeah, I
town?
can talk to the chief.
Because years ago, when Bob Dylan was here, he made that one of his duties. I don't know if it was a directive from the hierarchy.
Right, I'll talk to the chief.
If I could just implement that, the police have identified in their posts that have been out, and they have provided the numbers also, and they still haven't gotten fixed.
But I can certainly.
So,
And that's been,
the chief is aware of all of this.
no, I'm
also.
saying, so that's been called into the desk, you're saying?
Or, I don't know if they're
Patrolman
sending
on
it
the
via
road.
email. Yes, there is a communication piece back to, and DPW has also been part of this conversation.
Okay.
Because, so we basically have everyone involved on our end, and it's still not getting done with JCP.
Okay.
So, yes, it has been requested by the police department. It's been over a year, that there has been communication and dialogue about the lights
Okay.
out.
And all that information can be opened?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelsey, 29 St. Peters. Are we paying for those streetlights that are out?
Paying for the electricity, I don't
Well,
know.
it's built on the basement for streetlights.
It is
correct?
there are a mix of streetlights in Keyport,
Okay.
okay? It just evolved over time. But the Cobra heads that are on the poles, the community is charged a fee per outlet, per fixture.
Right.
And it is a flat fee per month. You raise a good point in terms of, hey, why are we paying for this if they're not here? And I suppose we can bring that up with them. There are also the black street poles, the decorative ones. They're owned by us, and they're metered, so we pay based on the draw. And then you have other fixtures, such as down in front of the condominiums on First Street there, across from Beach Park. Those poles are owned by them. And it's just a hodgepodge, it's hard to tell who owns what, but the ones we own are metered, so if the lights are out, we're not paying for the power. Cobra heads high up on the wooden poles, they are a flat fee per fixture. So, they've been out quite a while. We did, actually, the mayor and I walked around getting the numbers to the extent that you could from the poles at night, because a lot of them don't have numbers. You call them up and say, there's a street light out on, Broad and whatever, and we need the number. I'm like, well, there's no number on it. Well, we can't fix it without the number. And I'm like, well, I can't help you,
Well, then you can't pay.
Yeah, well, I understand. And we did have a discussion about not paying the bill, for sure. The good news is, we've turned the corner in terms of getting these things repaired, and they seem to be coming back on. And we're gonna stay on top of it.
So, about how many are out?
And the ones that we identified, probably, I'm gonna say about 8 or 9 were out on the central business district. In terms of the back streets and everything, I don't know the answer to that question right now. At some point, I'm gonna assign, a public works crew to drive up and down every street and record, what's going on. We also have over in Maple Place, somebody hit the solar box, which knocked out the whole street. Now, that's the insurance company's, gonna pay for that.
All right, well, we shouldn't be paying for these lights. We've been out for a long time.
Sure.
It's unreasonable. That's all, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have to talk about.
There's a closed session on the agenda, it's related to contract negotiations involving the borough. There's going to be attorney-client privilege information discussed. Once the information is available for the public will be made aware.
Have a motion to go into close with a 4-minute recess.
4-minute recess, motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.